Hello everybody, day 11 of shelter. Today we're staying with recognizing patterns, and we're going to linger here a little bit longer for a couple of days because there's a lot for us to work around when it comes to recognizing patterns. And I'd like you to take something really specific today, because I think if you work with something that's practical in your life, you'll actually gain the benefit from a session like this. So I'd like you to think about a relationship that you have, that you know you have reactive patterns and triggers that get you hooked. So the first thing I want you to be thinking of is, what are the areas that you might get yourself triggered? So for many people, it could be around children, our physical lives, finance, work, busyness, whatever that might be. So the very things that come up regularly that create conflict within your life are the areas I want you to be thinking about. And when you think about those, I want you now to think about how am I triggered in those areas? So let me give you an example. I get really triggered by behavior. So if somebody's rude to me, I tend to dive in and actually get quite aggressive myself. Now, I know that that's not a good pattern for me. It's never served me, and it never does. However, when I am not being mindful and I'm not regulating myself, I tend to still go there. So the question you want to ask yourself is, when I'm feeling triggered, when somebody is, in my case, being rude, where do I go? I go to attack mode, aggression. So whatever that might be for you, I want you to have that top of mind. And I'd like you to actually be thinking about the model that we spoke about the other day, the think, feel, act, which was our authentic model that we spoke about. I hope this is going to be clear enough for you to read. If not, don't stress, because I'm going to talk you through it. So if you look at your thinking side of it, so what is going on in your mind when you are taking a moment, maybe not in that moment, because generally when we're being reactive, we're not really taking the chance or the time to apply some consequential thinking around what our best response might be. We generally trigger, which means we've had a hijack, and we become the irrational party in the conversation, and we follow through with behaviors that are not necessarily helpful. So when you get a chance now, in retrospect, looking back, you could actually go and think about what your thoughts are around that. So typically my thoughts when somebody is very rude to me is, nobody's going to speak to me that way. So it's actually not necessarily a thought for me, it's a statement. And I know that that is actually quite linked to a memory trigger for me. So there can also be layers of things that are driving your behavior. So once you've got to your thoughts or your belief system around something, you can go into your emotions. And if somebody's being rude to me, it irritates me, it disappoints me, and it really angers me. And then, of course, as I've said already, my action is to dive in and generally attack, unless I'm managing myself in that place and I can maybe withdraw for a short time and then circle back and have a really good conversation. So I think all of you can get to that, because generally these things come up quite quickly for us. They're top of mind, they're patterns that we know. Why? Because we go there as often as we do. So if we now take the same think, feel, act, authentic model that we spoke about the other day in terms of how could I think differently about this? So the first thing you want to be able to do is hold back on your action. So take a 6-second pause and ask yourself the question, what's really important for me now in terms of my action or non-action? Thinking about your long-term and your short-term reward in terms of how you might respond. So once you've taken that 6-second pause, it's basically pulling you out of that reactiveness and allowing you to go into the thinking space and actually think logically and rationally about the way forward. So we love to talk about noble goals, and a noble goal is very often connecting your daily chores with your long-term vision. Now, if I look at this relationally, I'm connecting my noble goal with that person. What am I actually looking for? I'm looking for intimacy and connection and closeness. And what my aggression is doing is actually pushing us further apart. So if I want to keep my noble goal in play, if I am aware of what I want out of that relationship, what my goal is, and what it is that I'm working towards, it's going to be a lovely opportunity for me to take that 6-second pause and actually step back and say, hold on, maybe this is not going to be as rewarding as it might be in that moment when I get that bit of satisfaction of allowing my ego to dive away from me and actually jump in and respond. And whilst you're in that process, you come back into your emotional side, and remember, at all times we're naming our emotions to tame them. So part of that 6-second pause is to come back, connect with what I'm feeling. I'm angry, I'm disappointed, and I'm sad. And I'm validating those emotions by giving them a name, acknowledging them, and then I'm exploring them. So I'm exploring where those emotions take me to when I am being triggered. I now realize in the second model, where I'm looking at how I can do things differently, I realize that I can transform my emotion to actually have a constructive conversation rather than get into exactly what's been given to me. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to stay within integrity within ourselves, and also to think about making the choices that we have in the moment with good intention in terms of the outcome that we're looking for. So I hope that was useful. We'll definitely unpack a lot more. I found these two frameworks, or the same framework, being unpacked in firstly how I react, and then now, with a bit of awareness, how might I respond now in a more appropriate, intentional way, that I'm not getting myself hooked and triggered, and keeping myself in patterns that are not necessarily helpful for me. I hope that was helpful. Chat tomorrow.